AECT was really informative for me. I got what I wanted out of it. Basically, I had a presentation to do, but the main reason I went was because I wanted to know more about going to other PhD programs. I'm a master's student right now. I'll be honest, I didn't really know for sure if I wanted to do a PhD program or if I wanted to just go into industry. And it was a great opportunity to talk to other professors at other universities as well as our own in a just kind of a non-school setting because we had a lot of time together. And so I was able to get a lot of information that I hadn't heard before from both our school and other schools about what it's like to be a professor, the process involved to become a professor, or to get a PhD. And so for me, that was very, very informative. Most of that information I did not get until the last day, the evening of the last day, and then the ride back. So, but a lot of it I got halfway, or here and there in between as well. And so, if that is a purpose you have for going, know that a great time to find information. It may not always happen right away. It may end up being near the end if you find it. Another thing that I had was showing interest in other schools. I was able to make connections with students in 3 or 4 other schools that that are on my radar of places I may want to go. And I was able to talk to them, see what it's like to be a student in that program, what's required of them, what it's like living in that area, housing, etc., as well as jobs. And then I was also able to make contacts with professors at these other places who had connections and friendships with professors in our program who then said, oh hey, okay, so you work with so-and-so? Okay, yeah, I'd have interest in hearing more about you. I'll be looking for your resume if you decide to apply here. And so I really feel like I got my foot in the door in a lot of places and really increased my chances of being able to get where I wanted to go solely by going to AECT and focusing my time on rubbing shoulders with other professors as well as students. And so that was something that I really felt like probably the 2 biggest takeaways I found for me was, one, figuring out more about if I even want to get a PhD or not, and 2, what it would be like in other programs as well as opening doors to those programs. So those are the biggest things for me, probably more than any other thing I did that.
Okay, hi. One of the reasons that I went was I wanted to get to know people and I wanted to find good tools that I could use for other things later on because I'm a tool person and I like free stuff. Especially free stuff that I can use to make other stuff for other people and other classes. And there was a lot of that at AECT because a lot of people, like not the professors, but the students, they all have limited budgets, just like I had limited budgets. And they would make cool looking things, and so I'd go up afterward and I'd ask them, what tool did you make to use this? And a lot of times it was free, which was fun. And so I put together a sheet of the free resources that different people talked about, and I made a page of it, and I will share it with you afterward. I'll put the URL up on the board if that's of interest to you, because that was one of the biggest things I came away with. The other thing I came away with was a lot of design ideas, because I'm in the design and development, and that's important to me, that's really neat to me, and so I took down notes, especially from one of the keynote speakers, that he was unique. He was very unique, very interesting kind of guy. And one of the big things he pointed out was that playtime inspires ideas. A lot of the big, inventions that we've ever had have come from playtime, have come from science fiction, have come from cool stories. Cell phones, that's totally Star Trek. So what he had to say was when you're coming up with ideas, don't be afraid to play around with it. Don't be afraid to have fun and think of the most crazy, off-the-wall kind of thing you possibly can, because oftentimes that'll be the most successful thing you can come up with in the end. And the other ideas that he had was if you're designing an experience for somebody, especially for kids, but for anybody, if you're designing an experience for somebody, don't let them see you set it up. Because that way they come into an already set up, exciting, they can't quite figure out how you did it because they didn't see you plug in the computer and turn it on. It's already there. It's a world they're walking into. And his other ideas were to have consistency and never drop the character. And that goes not just for, designing an experience for kids, but that also goes for when you're, working with a client or whatever. Never drop your character. So those are the big things that I came away with. And the very last one was the Mary Poppins quote, which I love that movie. But it's that in every job that must be done, there's an element of fun. You find the fun, and the job's a game. And that is, well, that was his approach to design, and he's successful enough to be asked to be the keynote speaker. And so I thought that was worth passing on to all of you. That was one of my takeaways. And I'm going to write up the tiny URL right after this, and then I'll pass it on to the next person. But inside there, it's a link to a Google file. And inside the file, there's several of them. There's, I think, top free resources, and that's my paper, and that's the one with, all the websites and apps. It's got some apps, it's got some online programs like HTML5 open source framework that you can do games with. That one was actually pretty cool. I saw the results of that one. And the other one was a free download for non-linear narrative mapping. So it's like PowerPoint, PowerPoint is very linear. You have slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. This is a tool where it's slide 1, and then it can branch. You can branch it towards slide 2 or slide 3. You can have conditional, you can put in CSS and JavaScript to make it feel like a website, or you can just do a basic plot out. It's good for things like games and trainings and choice-based or branching stories. It's not necessarily the finishing tool, but it's a good mapping out tool. So those were a couple that I found especially helpful. I thought I'd throw them out there so you can take a look afterward if you want to. And then the other thing is, I got permission, I only heard back from him last night, but one of the people who presented, he gave a very good presentation on infographics. And so I contacted him and I asked him if I could share the slides with you. And the answer was yes, but on an individual basis. So I can't put it in the file to share with all of you, but you can email me and I can share it with you individually. So I'm going to write up the tiny URL and I'm going to write up my email address. And if you want that, the slides on infographics and how to make them, let me know, send me an email, and I will shoot them to you. Is that okay? All right, I'm going to write them up now.
Can you post that on the Google Plus page?
I will.
Okay, so I'm Kyle. I am a first semester, needs a password.
No, these are passwords. What?
I'm a first semester master's student in our program here. And so this semester, one of my goals has been to get a breadth in our field of kind of just everything going on. So I decided, since AECT was so close this year, and I'll talk about some of my specific interests. Since AECT was so close this year, I decided I might as well go and just go to all kinds of sessions and figure out what are my main interests in this field. And I went to a lot of interesting things, and I especially loved getting to network. I had applied to different programs. Specifically, one was Penn State, and I was really interested in some of the work faculty were doing there, and I was able to meet those faculty members and connect with them. One of them, I think he just says this to everyone, but he's like, yeah, you can come and stay at my home. And it was just fun to actually meet these people and to have that connection. And I think a lot of us went to the Breakfast with Champions experience, where graduate students can go and sit at a table and have breakfast with leaders in our field. And I got to meet, a few of us sat with Dave Merrill, who helped, found our program here. So that was a cool experience, and to meet some people like that. I also like just, it's kind of sad that I don't get to know everyone in our own program, but being down there, you instantly know who is a BYU person, and it was fun to get to know and make connections with some of the people in our program. I found out that I learned Sam's last name, and it turns out we're like fifth cousins or something. So, so it was fun to make connections with students here as well. And I just wanted to bring up, I love theory and everything, and that's why I'm in this program, is to get that background. But what gets me really excited is just cool technology. So these are a couple of the things that I went to and a couple different sessions about. And what I found is going to all these sessions really sparked ideas for me as a beginning master's student of projects I could do going forward and things I could work on. So one of them was with virtual reality at the University of Wyoming. They have what they call a cave, a 3D cave, and basically there's screens all around you and even projected onto the floor, and you put on these glasses. And what they did is they had elementary students draw pictures of what they thought happens when oil and water are poured into the same glass. And then they used this cave to give them a greater visualization on the molecular level of what happens. So the students could go in there and the projections are interacting with their movements, and there's a switch, they can pour more water in, and suddenly all these H2O water molecules are falling in, and then they pour oil in. And it was just really cool to me as somebody who loves that kind of thing, to see what they did with that to help it, to provide an educational experience, and especially going forward with technologies like this becoming more accessible. The other one is augmented reality. So until Pokemon Go came out this summer, like nobody knew what this was. And then it's been my hobby for a while now. My hobby, people have looked at me like I'm crazy when I say I enjoy playing games, virtual games in the real world kind of thing. But now everybody does it, I guess. So one way they're using it in education is they have this old field that's just nothing. But turns out there's a lot of history there that the buildings no longer stand, but students went on a field trip with their iPads and were looking around this field and could see where these buildings once were and could click on them and interact. One of the buildings was still standing, and when students looked at that, they could click on it, and they learned it was actually a black school prior to segregation, and learned this really great story, being history detectives in a way that I thought the technology really enhanced their experience. So those were just a few of the highlights from my experience there. I also went to the infographic, right, I don't know where Melissa just went. Oh, there's the infographic session. That was another one. So I'd recommend talking to her about getting that, because there were a lot of cool skill courses and then just research in general. So that's my experience at AECT.
So I chose 4 pictures to represent what I learned from AECT. And the first one, you might recognize, this is David Merrill, and as many of you know, he helped found the program and write the first principles of instruction. So I was really interested in meeting him. And he had a presidential session where he talked about his 50-year journey in this field. And I really loved that. And that kind of just brings me to one of my main takeaways of meeting these big wigs in the field, the names that are on our textbooks and that we hear quite often, and seeing that they're people just like us. And I really enjoyed the environment of AECT. It was like a big family. They said that several times. But I really did feel that people were very accepting and willing to talk to you. And the Breakfast of Champions was a good opportunity to do that as well. And I loved getting to know people in our IP&T program better in an environment that was unique and let us interact and have fun together. And the next picture is of Cirque du Soleil. So that was the first general session that everybody went to. And they, instead of having actual acrobats come, they had 3 of the stage managers. Well, one of them was a little different, but 3 of the managers of Cirque du Soleil shows talk about their training and the technology that they use in the shows. And I found that fascinating, and it just kind of made me reflect on how a lot of shows or learning experiences have a lot behind them, a lot of planning and training that make them possible, even if on our user end it doesn't look like it, or we don't understand all of the trade secrets or all of the mysteries that go on behind the scenes. And it was just incredible to hear about how some of their shows have 9 floors where different things happen, or have sequences where if the choreography goes wrong, then maybe they'll get hit by a metal rod that's shooting out at them, things like that. So enjoyed that a lot. The third picture is the guy that Melissa mentioned, Barry, and he did one of the general sessions about creativity and play and learning. And what I liked was the exercise we did at the beginning was saw a picture of a paperclip and had to write down as many uses for that paperclip as possible in a certain amount of time. And then he talked about how the results that we get on that show our divergent thinking. So it shows how well we're able to come up with uses that aren't conventional for something, which is, creativity. And he talked about how kids are really good at it, that 98% of children get a really high score on something like this, whereas adults by our age, past the teen years, only like 2% get that high of a score. It was really interesting. So his thoughts just made me think about how I can make my work more like play, and make the things that I produce more like play, so that learning and so that work feels more enjoyable, but you kind of sneak the play in. And the last picture is just kind of how I felt through the week. So there were a lot of different options for the sessions that we could go to. Every hour you had dozens of things you could look at and people you could go watch. And I really liked going to the sessions held by our own IP&Ters. But it was fun to pick and choose, and kind of like general conference, I had all sorts of notes and all sorts of ideas. But in the end, I just saw the many possibilities that this field has. I got some ideas for what research I want to do, and I enjoyed getting to know people better and feeling part of a community.
So I'm Ben Mackley. I went to AECT because I was presenting with Robert Bodley and Terry Kerr. So we presented on the research that we did last year. And I also went down because I've never been to a conference before, so I just wanted to see what it was like. And the presentations, they were pretty fun. They're smaller than I thought they would be, so like for the 2 sessions that we presented at, there's probably 10 at the first session and then maybe 20 at the second session. So I was a little bit surprised at how small it was, but it was nice because I wasn't as nervous presenting. And there was just a lot going on. I mean, like Alyssa said, there was a lot of presentations that you could choose to go to. And actually presenting, I think it was nice being able to try to explain what we did to other people. After the second one, some students from George Mason University came up and like just asked us questions, and it was cool. I was able to network with them and kind of give them advice on how to do the studies that they were trying to conduct. And it was just interesting to get perspectives from other people presenting. I think it's a lot easier to digest research when somebody presents it rather than reading it, just because reading research sometimes it's kind of thick, so it's hard to get through. But when somebody presents it, they usually, I don't know, it's like in terms that you can understand. It's almost more like a conversation than it is just trying to read through abstracts, trying to pick out like what's important. And then because I've been working with Bob, what Bob did last year is he did the 3-minute thesis. And so just to kind of give an overview of what that is. So you take the research that you're doing, so for your thesis or your dissertation, and then you present it in 3 minutes. So it's basically trying to get the main ideas out to people that have never encountered it before. So it's kind of like doing your abstract in presentation form. And presenting is really hard in the 3-minute thesis, just because there's so many things that you are trying to cover, and it's hard to pick and choose which things you want to say. So because Bob did that, he encouraged me to do the 3-minute thesis. They have one at AECT. They also have one here in the McKay School. So I went to the one that they did in the McKay School last spring, and Rob Nyland, he graduated, but I think he took 2nd place last year. And just from their experiences, I thought it'd be cool to do it too. So I signed up for it, and I didn't prepare as well as I should have. So I went in, they did like a round before to kind of weed out the people, to have like a finals at the end. So there's 2 rounds, and the first round I wasn't as prepared as I should have been, so I was like really nervous getting up there. But it was nice because Bob was there, and I got through somehow, and Bob gave me a lot of good feedback. So I think with anything that we do in our field, it's good to have feedback, whether we're writing or like creating some kind of course design or instructional materials. Just having the feedback process helps in improving. So that was just really helpful. And then I came back the next day, and Tara, she was at both presentations, and she said that I improved a lot. And so I think it was just interesting that it confirmed how important it is to get help in improving whatever we're doing. And it was just fun. So that's the second thing I want to highlight is like AECT was just a lot of fun. There's so many students down there. Like I was able to meet a lot of students that I don't know, a lot of people here that are in the 1st-year masters, just because I'm kind of hiding away, plugging away, coding most of the day, so I don't interact as much as I should. But it's fun writing back with Heather and Alyssa and McKay. I was able to really get to know them and what they're interested in. And then during the conference, it was just fun networking with people from other universities and realizing that what we do here at BYU isn't just something that pertains to BYU, but like our field actually applies to every school across the country. So what people are doing at George Mason or Virginia Tech or even Harvard are similar to what we're doing studying in this field. So it's nice to know that we're not in just this little bubble, but really we exist outside of the sphere too. I guess you can get that from reading research, but it's just a little different when you're actually talking to the people who are producing the research. And overall, I'm more of a practitioner than a researcher, so I was a little bit out of my element at AECT, with everyone talking about like research methods. So from the conference, I decided that I don't want to continue in academia, but I love the connection to it. So I think going to the conference was useful for me, just understanding what I like and why I like what I like in the field. And so even though I'm like not going to continue going to AECT in future years, like this year was just really informative and helpful as I continue on in the career, because like even if we're not going to be professors, or if we're not publishing after we graduate from the program, like we're still going to have those connections, and like hopefully we're consuming that research that people are providing or publishing throughout the years. So I think just learning the names in AECT, the people that are publishing the important literature in our field, and connecting with those people, establishing a relationship with them, I found to be really useful.
Okay. Hi, I'm Emily, and I enjoy going to AECT. Ever since fall of last year, Tad and I and Dr. West have been working on a research project about what's it like to take your learners out of your traditional LMS and use Facebook as the discussion board. And so we had some fun times going through our data for that and presented on that topic. And so I had been planning to go to AECT for a while, and had a great time. I feel like there's not much I can add to what else has been said, but probably the first thing I will say is that I went to AECT with questions in my head about exactly what I was interested in learning. So before you go to a conference, I think have questions about what you want and look through the schedule. I look through the schedule for things about online and distance education, blended learning, best practices, things of that nature, because that's where I was thinking that my dissertation was heading. And so if I could make connections at AECT with people who were seminal in the field, then I could do that. I ended up at a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Dr. Graham was there asking a bunch of questions to Tony Pina, who's a big leader in the field. He's not a graduate of this program, but he is. Yeah, he's from BYU, like he came here, and now he's practicing administrator of an online program somewhere back east. And now it looks like we're going to start collaborating on a project together, which is really, really kind of cool. Definitely go with questions in mind, and you will end up showing up at the right places and see similar people. I tried to kind of look around and see like who was there. Another person who I ran into several times is Jared Borup, who you probably heard of him. He's done some great work, and he's a faculty member at a school in Virginia, and he's working on online and blended learning with K-12, creating some standards for them. So I was able to make some really good contacts. The other thing I learned, we were in our presentation, which was only a half hour, and there were only, Ben said that 10 to 20 people came to their presentation. We had 5, so we had even fewer people. There's a ton of choices, so you never know who's going to show up, and I didn't expect many people to come to ours, but one of the people who came to ours, it wasn't during our presentation, but after we were done, somebody else was presenting. We shared the space for the hour. And there was a lady in the back who was from, I think she's from Germany, and she raised her hand and basically questioned the premise of the research question and the research methods. And I was like, whoa, like this is where the rubber hits the road. Like she was really paying attention to how they designed their experiment and said, you know what, you really should have set it up like this because then you would have the data like this. And I was like, okay, first of all, she's really brave to like just say that to the presenter. But second of all, the people who are at this conference, they care about research that is done well and about things that are thorough and accurate. And I appreciated that people were willing to speak up and ask the kind of critical questions that you might get in a prospectus or you might get in a dissertation defense. So knowing that that's the kind of rigor we're looking at was really cool for me. I volunteered so that I didn't have to pay as much money for my registration. So I volunteered at the registration desk and got to check a lot of people in. And I think one of my favorite things about that was the diversity of people that I was able to meet and say hello to. I kind of just loved saying hello to people and meeting them, and I kept talking to people from China, people from Turkey, people from Europe. I was amazed. I loved it. It really gave me a good flavor for who is working in our field and where they're from, and that we're not alone in this endeavor. Kind of similar to what others have said. Really, I really enjoyed that. It kind of made me think, yes, I think I would like to work outside of Utah in this field. Sometimes I think I get a little bit, I don't know, put my blinders on and only want to work locally, but there are so many opportunities outside of where we are, and keep an open mind when that time comes for you, whatever track you're in. Yeah, those were some of the things that really stood out to me, but I enjoyed presenting, and I enjoyed having a focus as I went, and actually since coming back from AECT I have sort of decided what to do for my dissertation, which is a huge thing because then I can plan out the rest of my courses. So if you're waffling on something like that, or waffling on topics or projects that you might do, consider going to a conference like this, network, get outside yourself, meet new people when you go. Don't just stick to the people you know. I went to rooms by myself, but sometimes I go with other people depending on if they recommended the session. So I think if you can go with if there's a small core group of people that you know, so that you can have maybe a home base of people to talk to, and then get outside yourself and meet new people and create those new connections that will be useful for you down the road would be my advice for anyone considering attending in Florida next year. That's obviously, it feels like a long time away, but yeah, I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested. So that's all.
Okay, cool. I'm Miku Staples. I'm brand new to this program. I just started as a master's student. I actually wasn't originally planning to go to AECT. It was kind of a spur of the moment, last minute thing. The stars aligned and I was able to go, so I went. But I actually really enjoyed it. This is my first time ever going to an academic conference. I'd never been to one before. Interestingly enough, my only prior experience at conference attendance was Comic-Con. And I was surprised by actually how similar they were. The content was very, very different, and the people there were a completely different kind of nerd, and there was a lot less cosplay. But they were very similar in terms of structure. There were panels that there was a wide variety of panels that you could attend happening on an hourly basis. You looked at the schedule, you chose the panels you wanted to go to, and then you went to the panels that seemed interesting. And some of them were really interesting, some of them were not very interesting, but overall I really enjoyed the chance to go. It helped me to, as it says up there, solidify what I wanted to do with my degree. I tried to go to panels that sounded interesting, and there were some things that I initially thought were things that I was interested in, but after hitting the panels, I kind of discovered that's not something I'm as interested in as I thought I was, gamification being one of those. I'll explain that too in just a second. So a lot of the gamification panels that I went to talked about, I guess what I might call like overt gamification. They were specifically designing educational games. They were taking the educational process and turning it into games. And why I think that can work, and obviously like everyone has to do their own thing. Like as I sat, I probably went to 3 or 4 different panels on the first day or 2 that I was there. And like during each of the panels I kept thinking, okay, but how is this going to apply once the students are out of the classroom and they stop playing the game? Like, okay, great, if they learn this information through a game, that's cool, but once they're out of that class that's using that game, learning that information about that subject isn't going to be as fun. So it's essentially just like a temporary fix, but it's not actually increasing their desire to learn. They're just increasing their desire to play a game, and they're tricking them into learning while playing a game. And so those are some of the thoughts that I had. That was really interesting. After, like I said, I'd gone to 3 or 4 of those, there was a keynote speaker, Barry, a couple other people have talked about him. I also was a huge fan of him. And he talked about how learning needs to be more like play. And there was one, I don't remember if this is something he said specifically, or if this is just a note that I took while I was listening to his lecture, but I put it in all caps because I thought it was like super important. And so one of the key messages that I got from his address was, it's not about disguising the content as a game, it's about showing ways in which the content can be viewed as play. He actually was talking about that right around the same time he was using that Mary Poppins quote. I'm also a huge fan of Mary Poppins, so my ears perked up when he said that. And so, you know, using that quote of in every job that must be done, there's an element of fun. If you find the fun, then snap, the job's a game. And then he was in really big favor of that particular ideology, but then he actually went on to attack a little bit more of Mary Poppins' ideology, where she says, with a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And he said, that's the part that I don't agree with, because you shouldn't be masking or disguising the learning with some sugar. You shouldn't be sugarcoating it. You should find the things in the learning that are inherently fun, that are inherently playful, and be encouraging those. And I thought that was really interesting. And so like that, like I said, I'm not sure if there's a specific term for this, but I think that kind of emphasized more what I might call like covert gamification, where you're not actually turning something into a game. You're just taking some game-like aspects that are already there and emphasizing them and drawing them out to bring more enjoyment and more play to the learning process. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I really liked his speech a lot. That was probably overall my favorite panel or discussion that I went to. But I just kind of, I guess to sum up what everyone else said, like this is definitely something I'd recommend going to. Like I learned a lot about what I'm interested in. It was really great to hear about a lot of the academia that's going on in our field, because that's something I'm personally interested in. Like I intend to stay in academia, so that was really, I don't know, nice for me to hear all these other people who are working in academia, what they're doing. Kind of gave me a chance to see my vision of what I hope to do in the future. So yeah, if you have, I don't know, if you're looking for ideas or looking for inspiration, I think that's maybe the main thing I walked away from after being in ACT, was I walked away inspired with what I would like to do. So if you are looking for inspiration, I would probably also encourage going to an academic conference. And then just Last thing, Las Vegas is a weird place. This is a picture of me with my new friend, a man made out of green Legos that I met on the strip. And I guess, I don't know what just happened.
You're done.
I actually am done, so yeah.
All right, if all of our presenters will now migrate up towards the front, so you can help with questions. And then while I'm thinking about it now, at the very end, Melissa's got an announcement for us as well, so she'll be our cleanup batter at the end. I am going to ask the first question. So when you were leaving, coming home, is there anything you thought about on the drive home that you wish you would have known about the conference on the first day that you were there? Pass the microphone around too so that people at a distance can hear.
One thing I thought of, I had a few people I wanted to meet there. And a lot of them actually weren't there this year. But I wish I had prepared more of a list of people I wanted to meet. As a first semester student, I was just kind of going, and it would have been nice to have a specific list of those I wanted to meet.
Okay, just to add to that, I probably should have come more prepared with what topics I wanted to learn about as well, and maybe looked at the schedule beforehand, because I made some last minute decisions like, oh, I guess I'll go here, and then I was like, I should have gone somewhere else. So.
And all on the same line, when I went, I had a project that I was working on that I asked specific people questions about, if they were in that area. But I wish I'd been further along in the project, had better questions to ask them, because they all had the information, I just didn't have the questions.
Titles of sessions can be deceiving.
True.
So make sure you read the synopses, and that's a little less deceiving.
This might sound totally a logistical thing, but I drove down with my husband. I wasn't with the van that took people down, and my husband and I said, okay, we don't want to spend an arm and a leg on food in Vegas. So we brought our groceries with us, and we had a mini fridge. I'm glad we did that, because around AECT I was talking to people, and they were like, where do you want to go for lunch? I was like, I'm going to go up to my room and eat, because I don't want to spend all my money on that. And so this is more of a suggestion, because I know some people who regretted it later. Think about logistics like that beforehand. You might not want to always be eating by yourself at mealtime, because that's a good networking opportunity, but strategically decide what you're willing to skip out on. Dr. West had explained something like that to us in 520 last year, and talked about maximizing on the times that you do go out to eat. And so it sounds silly, but it ended up making the conference more enjoyable for me to be able to kind of carve out times when I knew that I would be okay to eat by myself, and then go out and spend my money on the kind of meals where I would be with people and that kind of thing. So.
So, of those of you who presented, and Emily, you told us what you presented on, but I'd like to hear what the others presented on, what your topic was.
So the two presentations that I did with Bob and Tara were on the design and development of a learning dashboard. So it was focused on Bob's research with presenting dashboards in a Chemistry 105 class. And then for my 3-minute thesis, I guess my project is on crowdsourced quizzes. So it's tied to what Bob's doing in the sense that the quiz application is part of the dashboard. So the area would be learning analytics and design and development.
I did a presentation with Peter Rich on a survey that he had sent out all around the world to different teachers who are teaching coding in K through 8. And so we had gone through basically tons and tons of results and free responses and all other sorts of answers, and there was a lot of really surprising results on how long people have been teaching, confidence levels in teaching, from country to country, just the differences in general, where it was very, very interesting. So.
So, Emily, you said you did, you presented on using Facebook instead of an LMS.
Yeah.
I know you don't have time to explain, but like thumbs up or thumbs down, does that work?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thumbs up or thumbs down. The answer is depends. If you're
Surprising.
surprise, I know. We came up, Tad and I actually, and we'd be happy to share the our slideshow with you if you're interested. What we ended up breaking it down was that before you decide to use online class discussions as a medium in your class, that you really have to know your purpose and know whether you want it to be mandatory or not. Several other parameters. And there's certain things that will make Facebook good, but you have to train your students and preempt their security questions because they're always going to be concerned about their privacy and like all this stuff. And so you kind of have to be willing to deal with those kind of concerns that come up if you choose to use another platform. There's some complications with using an extra platform if you already have an LMS in place. But there have been studies done where someone used Facebook as an LMS, a private closed group, and it turned out surprisingly well in their study. I can show it to you if you want, but yeah, interesting.
Cool.
We have time. Any other questions from anyone?
Did any of you read any really good books on your way to Las Vegas? Just kidding.
Listen.
I spent most of the trip down reading comic books, and a lot of the trip back reading a book that I had to read for Dr. McDonald's class.
And I was in Dr. Graham's car, and what was the name of that book?
There's an enemy sub and doctor or somebody, or I don't know.
There's an
It's
enemy
about World War
pond,
II.
it's an enemy sub in somebody or other's pond, and it was surprisingly fun. We had a good time. I read it in his car, so I don't know if that's what you were going for.
Yeah, sorry.
I had other books I read too. I'll tell you about them later.
Okay, if there's nothing else, let's give our presenters one more round of applause.